Good afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and I have now decided just to whip the engine out. So if you don't see this video, then it didn't go to plan. If you do, then it went to plan. So here we go. So I've now taken everything off the engine. Like there was a one lead on there that had to be taken off. I've taken that off. And what I do is, right, I have now used a jack underneath to support the gearbox, and then with that jack I lift the engine off the engine mounts here and on the other side. Right, I'll just see if I can see a gap on that side, so you can see the gap there. So I lift the engine up so that I take the weight on the gearbox, and then I put the engine hoist on, which I've done now. And then I'll now take out the last bolt, which is this one here. So I'll take that one out. Take that one out. And now, with any luck, I should be able to lift the engine straight out. So if I lift the engine up now, I'll lift it off the gearbox jack. However, when the engine comes free, it'll go back onto the axles, it'll go back onto the gearbox jack. I just don't want it to fall, that's all. So I'll just halt for a second while I set up the other stand. Okay, so now with any luck, I should be able to just pull the engine forward. It'll come off the gearbox input shaft, and then yeah, the engine should just come out. So I'll stop here for a minute because I've got a little problem. I'll fix that problem and then we will continue on. So the problem being the engine mounts. So on the later one, they have these bigger block ones, the bigger block, like the circular block. And yeah, obviously same on the other side. And as you can see now, well, the engine's free now, but the reason that I left the engine mounts on and undid them on the block was because on this side, if you have to take this engine mount off, you have to let the rack go to get to the nut behind the engine mount. So I tried to do it without, and it didn't quite work out. So as a minimum, you have to let this engine mount go. So when I put the other engine back in, I will attach this to this and then just screw the nut back on underneath on the engine mount. On the early ones, it doesn't matter because you just take all the engine mount bolts out of here and just lift straight up. So there you go. All right, so we'll continue on with the lift now, and yeah, so everything should go to plan now, I think. just a safety thing. Whenever you're pushing the engine hoist around like this, never push the jib. Never push that, because that'll cause the thing to tip over. So you always move the bottom legs, or the back over there obviously. And then as soon as you get the heavy weight free from the engine, always drop it down as low as possible to keep the weight as low, the heavy weight as close to the ground as possible. Save any embarrassing incidents. All right, so that's it. The engine's out now. Oh, everything's clean and tidy inside there. It all looks very neat and tidy. And because the gearbox is supported by the jack, it won't fall off and damage or bend anything. So that's really good. And it's up against the bodywork there, where you can see the starter motor casing is catching on the bodywork. So that's enough to get the engine in and out. All right, so I'll give the engine bay a bit of a clean up, and I'll put the spare engine in. All right, I'll catch you when I get picking the other engine up. Good afternoon. So engine's out. I've now been doing a bit of moving around, which is a bit of a logistical nightmare due to where the engine, the test engine stand is and where the shed is. However, done it now. So I've now got the test engine here now, and you may see that I've got, so when you put the MX-5 gearbox in, you have to remove the spigot bearing out of the crankshaft. So I'll do that in a second, and hopefully it'll go as well as it has in the past. So what I've done now is, to get the engine in a bit easier, I have taken this engine mount off and I'm leaving this one in. And then I'm going to push the gearbox over a little bit. It has to go over that way a little bit to make it easier to get in. So that's the that's the fly in the ointment, right, is the engine mountings. And being able to get the clutch and the engine, and being able to move them around a little bit to try and get them aligned with the engine, with the gearbox still in place. So we'll see how we go. So yes, that's where I'm up to with that. So with regard to the engine, so when I lift it, I have like an arrangement of shackles here, and one of them is this one here, which allows the engine to swivel through 360 degrees without having to undo shackles and play around with it and all that sort of stuff. So I always have the adjustment screw on the front of the engine, so you can tilt the engine backwards and forwards relatively easily and not have to do it at the back here. So yeah, got to have shackles everywhere, right, because they're just easier to work with. And then yeah, I had to cut these down to give me that little bit of extra headroom on the bonnet. So I've done that, not in place obviously, they were on the bench. Don't want grinding marks, so I'll see how this goes now. So I've filled a hole in there with the grease, and then I have this super duper crap to cream spigot bearing removing tool, which is made on the lathe. So with any luck now, if I give that a significant belt with a hammer, that should just come out. That's the theory behind it anyway, so we'll see how it goes, eh? I should wear a pair of gloves, but there aren't any. Oh yes, there are some here, just in case things go flying everywhere and grease gets sprayed everywhere. So I need a little bit more grease. Oh, I love this stuff. I love it. Love it, love it. Love it. Obviously don't use your most prized grease for this, because it's only going to waste. So that's, now that should go back in there again. And then when I wipe the grease off my fingers and put my hand back in the glove, I'll give it another belt, and with any luck it should just fly out. There you go. There's a release spigot bearing is out. So I find that the easiest way to do it. I'll have to get the grease off my fingers now so I can turn the camera off. But there you go, yeah. So now I'll put that down there. So what oh God, grease everywhere. Gosh, grease everywhere, you never put it. So I'll clean all this up, obviously, get all the grease out of here. Ugh. And then when you put the MX5 gearbox in, you have to put this little, this is a replacement spigot bearing for the gearbox. So I've used it once, and it comes with these knurled things on this knurled surface on here, so I'm hoping that it's still tight enough to go in here. It's a pretty neat fit. So I'll clean all the grease out, I'll put it in the fridge, and then I will tap that in with a plastic mallet. So yeah, that has a roller bearing in it. Never a great fan of the roller bearings, but that's what it comes with, so that's what it's getting. So there you go, spigot bearing removed, and that's what I've got to do now to finish it off. Whew, starting to warm up a bit now here in WA, getting a bit warmer. Anyway, that's where I'm up to. So I'll sign off for now, and then I'll give you some more progress when things are going back together again. Bye for now. Morning. So we are now in reassembly phase. So I've now fitted the flywheel, done all the nuts up on the flywheel to 40 foot-pounds, not Newton meters. I've now installed the flywheel, the spigot bearing. So you can see here now, flywheel's installed. Now with this spigot bearing, the new one for the MX5 gearbox, you have to put that in after you have put the flywheel on and knocked all the tabs up on the bolts. I know this from experience because I put this in first last time, and then when I put this tab washer around the outside, I couldn't get to any of the tabs, and I ended up having a right nightmare trying to get the tabs to go over the bolts. So this time, flywheel on first, then tap that in with a oversized socket, and I used a 2-pound hammer. No point using a light hammer and hitting it a truckload of times. If you just use a reasonable sized hammer and hit it in a few times, then you can feel the when this bottoms out in the crankshaft, you get a different feel with the hammer hitting the socket, so you know when it's home. So that's all home, all done, cleaned up now, ready to put it back together again. So I'll just put the pressure plate and the drive plate on and torque them up, and then I will come back to you. Right, so I've now put the clutch plate and pressure plate and the spigot bearer all back together again. I'll show you, because this is an important bit if you're putting an MX5 gearbox in. So you'll see here the clutch pressure plate. Now in here there is a washer. That's a spacer that spaces the pressure plate out that much. So just be mindful, if you're putting an MX5 gearbox in, don't forget to do that, because otherwise it over compresses the clutch plate. Alright, and these are all 30 foot-pounds. Alright, and I undo them up as opposites. Alright, so there you go, and then the clutch alignment tool straight through, easy. And you know it's gone in because it's got grease on the end of it. So there you go. Just to put a little bit of synthetic grease on the inside of the roller bearing, inside the spigot bearing. Personally don't like them, but it is what it is, and you just have to get on with it. So that's now ready to go in. So what I'll do now is I'll post this video now, because personally I don't like long videos. I think you get more out of a short, sharp video. Thank you very much indeed for subscribers. Thank you very much for comments. and the next video now will be me putting the engine back in again, so that could be very long, or it could be very, very short. So we'll see how we go with that. So I'm going to leave that engine mounting off. I've got this one bolt here which is a bit long right now, so I'm going to take this off and put a shorter one. I don't need a bolt that long. It just makes getting the engine mount back in all that much harder. And also I made a rod for my own back with that, because I use nylock nuts on the engine mounts, and it makes it very difficult to get the nuts on and off flat at a time, because the nylock is doing what a nylock does. So I'll just use spring washers on these when I put them back together, and that'll make make the tightening up a lot easier, especially the one on the bottom of the engine mount, being this one. So I've cut my 4 threads off the end of that so that it goes in easier, and that's all it needs to be. And then I'll put a nut and a spring washer and a flat washer on that. Holding the washers and then everything onto the bolt is difficult, but yeah, we'll persevere. So thank you very much indeed again for subscribing, watching, and I'll post these now, and then the next one will be the installation, hopefully. All right, bye for now.